Well, good evening, everyone. I would like to call this meeting to order and welcome all members of council, members of the planning department that are with us this evening, Denise, Selena, and Megan, and to all members of the public that are joining us, to our staff that are also in attendance this evening. Welcome to all. At the outset, I would like to indicate that this meeting has been called to hear any application under the Planning Act that requires a public meeting, and for council or the Committee of Adjustment to consider any decisions related to those relevant applications. Meetings of council are live streamed on the township's official website in accordance with the live streaming and virtual participation of meetings policy. By attending this meeting, attendees and participants are consenting to their image, voice, and comments being recorded and available for public viewing on the township's website. Do any members of council have a pecuniary interest or potential conflict of interest of any agenda item that we have this evening? None noted. Thank you very much for that. We do have a public meeting that we will have at the outset, and so I would entertain a mover and a seconder to adjourn our regular council meeting. Councillor Hickey moves, Councillor Forrester seconds, that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Council hereby adjourns the regular council meeting and opens the public meeting. A zoning bylaw amendment to review zoning bylaw amendment application Z02-2024 Alton. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. I thank you. Okay. So we are now in our public portion of the meeting. Do any members of council have any pecuniary interest or general conflict of interest to indicate at this time of these applications? None noted. We do have an application for zoning bylaw amendment, application Z02-2024 Alton. Council has been provided with the report, and it would now be my pleasure to call on Megan Tid-Hernick to review this application with council. Welcome, Megan.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Like Glenn said, we have a zoning bylaw amendment, Z02-2024. Okay.
Please proceed.
Okay, so we have a zoning bylaw amendment for 86 Wellington Street in Port Albert. This is the property here. It is located within the settlement boundary of Port Albert, and the area to be rezoned is outlined in green, is approximately 7.39 acres. It is currently vacant land and is proposed for future development. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is a result of a condition of a severance that was passed last year. This is consent application C57-2023. And this was to change the zoning on portions of this land from village residential to village residential with a holding symbol. And this holding symbol can be removed once a satisfactory development plan has been submitted and appropriate servicing is planned for or in place to the satisfaction of the township. So it is recommended that
Thank you for that. Please continue, Megan.
Absolutely. So it is recommended to the Council of Township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh to approve zoning bylaw amendment application Z02-2024 on the basis that it is a condition of consent application that was approved last year, and any future development will proceed in an appropriate manner, and the holding symbol can be removed at that time.
Okay, thank you very much for that. As this is a public meeting, I would like to indicate that under the Planning Act, it is a requirement that council hold at least one public meeting and that proper notice be given. and notice was given on the 28th day of May 2024. So we have received the comments from our planner, and I now will ask if there are any members of the public that would like to speak in opposition to this application. And if there is, please go to the microphone. And if there's not, is there any members of the public that would like to speak in favor of this application? And seeing none, would the applicant and or agent care to make any comments at this time? Seeing none, I will now open it up to council if you have any questions or comments on this application. Seeing none, if I would like to indicate if a person or public body files an appeal of decision of ACW Township in respect to the proposed rezoning, but does not make a written or oral submission prior to the proposed rezoning is adopted, the Ontario Land Tribunal, in brackets OLT, may dismiss all or part of the appeal. Zoning bylaw procedure following the meeting is this is a public meeting, not a council meeting. Therefore, a decision of council may or may not be made this evening. If the bylaw is passed, the clerk must send notice of the passing of the bylaw to all persons notified of the meeting and to any person or public body that has requested it. There is a 20-day objection period from the time notice of passing has been sent, where applications will be received by the clerk. If an objection is received, an appeal is lodged with the Ontario Land Tribunal, in brackets OLT, and the municipality no longer has jurisdiction of the file and or the processing time. You may only file an appeal if you have submitted oral or written comments prior to the decision of council. The fee for filing an appeal is $1,100, payable by certified check or money order in Canadian funds, made out to the Minister of Finance, and must be accompanied by appellant form in brackets A1. If council does not pass the bylaw, the application may appeal to the OLT. The applicant, excuse me. If the bylaw is passed and no objections are received within the 20-day appeal period, the clerk will certify that the bylaw is in force and effect as of the date of this passing, and notice is forwarded to the planning department and to the applicant. It has been recommended that ACW Council approve zoning bylaw amendment application Z02-2024. Okay, so I will ask for a show of hands from council if we are in support of this to consider it in the bylaw in section 18. And that is supported by council. Thank you. Megan, do you have any effective public and agency comments on this decision as a suggestion for us, please?
I do, thank you. So the effective public and agency comments is 2A, no public comments were received, so there was no effect on this decision. And 3B, agency comments were received in support of the application, the effect of which resulted in a decision to approve.
Okay, thank you very much. So the effective public and agency comments on this decision is 2A and 3B, and I will ask for a show of hands from council if we are in support of this. And that is supported by council. Thank you very much. And with that, I would entertain a mover and a seconder to close the public meeting. Councillor Miltenberg and Forrester, all in favor of this motion. And that is carried. Thank you very much. And I would also entertain a mover and a seconder to reconvene our regular council meeting. Councillor Hickey and Blake, all in favor of this motion. And that again is carried. Thank you. Yep. You okay? Yep. Okay. We will now enter our committee of adjustment, and I would entertain a mover and a seconder to adjourn our regular council meeting and open the committee of adjustment meeting to review minor variance applications MV 2024-02 Dalton and MV 2024-03 Turgensen. Moved by Deputy Mayor Vanstone, seconded by Councillor Hickey. All in favor of this motion. And that is carried. Thank you. Okay. We are now in our committee of adjustment meeting. Do any members of council have a pecuniary interest or general nature thereof to indicate at this time of these applications? Seeing none, thank you. We are reviewing under item 3.1 the minor variance application file MV-2024-03 2024-02 Dalton. We have received information on this provided by our county planner, Megan Tid-Hernick, regarding this application, and I would welcome Megan to address council on this application at this time, please. Megan.
Thank you. Just one second while I get situated again. Okay, so we have minor variance application MV02 2024, and this is located at 84782 Kingsbridge Line. The subject property is designated agriculture, natural environment, and settlement area in the ACW official plan. It's currently zoned AG1 and FD, which is future development, in the ACW zoning bylaw. So the applicant is seeking to construct an additional residential unit with an attached garage, and you can see in the figure here that where the location of the new house. The house is already built, so with the update to the ACW zoning bylaw when we did the housekeeping for the additional residential units, they decided they would like to keep this second house. There is a permit to demolish the existing house currently. Our chief building official did make comments during the circulation period. So what they are looking for relief from is for an additional residential unit, we have policies that it must be 60 meters from the existing house and also only have one driveway, so using the main driveway for the house. What we can see here, the original house has been there for quite some time, but it shows up the best in the 1978 aerial photos. And then we can see in 1999, there is a second driveway. So that has been there for quite some time. So the additional residential unit is utilizing that second driveway that was being used for the agricultural purposes. It has been moved since this 99 photo. You can see back here, it used to be, you can kind of see it faintly, it's in the middle, but the development of the second driveway is not as a result of the additional residential unit. So it is the recommendation that the council approves the minor variance application on the basis that it is minor in nature and will continue to operate as an agricultural property. The current owner is aware that there is no possibility to sever the second residential unit off of the property, and they do not have intentions to do so.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And again, this is a public portion of the meeting, and it has been recommended for approval with the application that variances approval be valid for 18 months. I will open it up to members of the public if there's anyone that would like to speak in opposition to this application. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of this application? Would the applicant care to make any comments at this time? And if not, I'll open it up to council. Questions or comments from council? And if not, I will entertain a mover and a seconder that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Committee of Adjustment approves the minor variance application MV 2024-02 Dalton as submitted, subject to the conditions as noted in the planner's report. Councillor Miltenberg moves, Deputy Mayor seconds. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. I thank you very much. Megan, what effective public and agency comments would you suggest to us on this decision, please?
Thank you. So that would be 2A is no public comments were received, so there was no effect on this decision. And 3B, agency comments were received in support of the application, the effect of which resulted in a decision to approve.
Thank you very much for that. So The recommendation is for the effective public and agency comments in this decision be 2A and 3B, and I will ask council if we are in support of this by a show of hands, please. And that is supported by council. Thank you very much. Megan, would you like to continue on with 3.2, the minor variance application file MV-2024-03? Torgensen, please.
Okay, so we have minor variance application MV-03-2024, and the address is 36713 River Road. So the subject property is designated natural environment in the ACW official plan, and it is zoned NE1-2, which is natural environment special zone in the ACW zoning bylaw. And to orient yourself, it's a bit tricky with this figure, but the bottom of the screen is River Road. So the house is facing the road there. They previously had a minor variance for the deck along the side, so this would be the west side of the house. They are now looking for an extension along the west and the back of the house, so kind of the west and north. They did receive a minor variance in 2021, and now they are looking to just extend it. And they're not encroaching any further into the side yard setback. So the side yard setback is set at 5 meters. They are looking to vary it to 2 meters. Considering that council approved a minor variance application in 2021 and they are not furthering the variance, they are just extending an existing deck, it is recommended that the minor variance application be approved on the basis that it is minor in nature and will not encroach further.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And again, this is a public portion of the meeting, and I will invite any members of the public that are opposed to this application to make comment at this time at the microphone. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor of the application, members of the public? If not, would the applicant care to make any comments? And if not, I will open it up to council for questions or comments. Seeing none, do I have a mover and a seconder for this approval? Councillors Forrester and Miltenberg, that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Committee of Adjustment approves a minor variance application MV-2024-03 Torgensen as submitted, subject to the conditions as noted in the planner's report. All in favor of this motion? And that is carried. I thank you. Do you have a recommendation for us on the effect of public and agency comments on this decision, please, Megan?
I do. So the effect of public and agency comments is 2A. No public comments were received, so there was no effect on the decision. And 3B, agency comments were received in support of the application, the effect of which resulted in a decision to approve.
Thank you for that. It has been recommended that the effect of public and agency comments in this decision be 2A and 3B, and I would entertain a show of hands from council if we were in support of this. And that is supported by council. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Megan, for that. And with that, I would entertain a mover and a seconder to close the public meeting, the Committee of Adjustment. Deputy Mayor Van Stone and Councillor Blake, all in favor of the motion. And that is carried. I thank you, and I would entertain a mover and a seconder to reconvene our regular council meeting. Councillors Miltenberg and Forrester, all in favor of the motion. And that is carried. Thank you. We now, under other planning items, have a zoning bylaw update of mapping. There was a public meeting held on the 15th of February, and there has been information provided to council on a matter of through a report by Selena McIntosh, planner, and Denise Van Amersfoort, Huron County Manager of Planning, along with supporting documentation. So at this time, I will pass it over to our planning department, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor McNeil. Let me just move that closer so that everyone can hear. Try to speak up the best I can. There we are. Well, firstly, Council, thank you very much for having us here this evening. We are here this evening to bring a staff report to Council following the public meeting on the zoning bylaw update process. So as Mayor McNeil outlined, the public meeting for this process was held in February. Following that public meeting, Council made the decision to pass the text portion of the zoning bylaw update, but to defer on the mapping, and directed staff to have further conversations with landowners to see if resolution could be met in regards to the outstanding mapping changes. Just in terms of process to date, this review was initiated in June of last year. We had done consultation with all of the landowners through open houses during last fall, and that culminated in the public meeting in February. At that time, there were outstanding objections. Since that time, we have received additional outstanding objectives, or objections, rather. We've also had the opportunity to meet with many members of the public, and I wanted to say I really did appreciate those members who sat down with us since the time of the public meeting and had the opportunity to share their perspective. Seems to be skipping ahead of me, to share their perspective. And I think that was really important for staff to be able to sort of reevaluate some of the recommendations that have been made and make adjustments. In terms of changes since the public meeting that staff had made, those are done, could be changes that could be supported on a technical basis. And what I mean by that, there were several factors that could be considered. And examples would be if an area, a natural area, the aerial interpretation had been, an error had occurred, if there was significant ash and the impacts of the emerald ash borer such that that area had been cleared or was about to be cleared, if there was substantial invasive species that needed to be addressed, where established agriculture, if agricultural practices had been established in an area, then those areas were removed from natural environment. One example, there was a property in which it had been laying fallow for a number of years. It appeared to be a natural area. There had been a new owner and they had turned that area into a hayfield. So that's an example of something that we would have taken out since the time of the public meeting. The area alongside municipal drains, that was one of the biggest changes we made since the time of the public meeting. We just felt that there was clearly the Municipal Drainage Act clearly outlines that from time to time those drains need to be cleared out. Where natural vegetation occurs alongside of the drain, there are times when the dredging occurs that vegetation needs to be removed. There was no suggestion that the natural environment zoning was going to impede that, but because there was such a concern from landowners, we've removed that. And I want to be clear with council, we didn't just remove it for those individuals who expressed concern. We went through and removed it in a consistent fashion. Overall, approximately 100 acres of natural environment was able to be supported by staff for removal based on technical considerations. Of those 157 acres are on one property, and I am going to be bringing that property to your attention so that council is clear as to where that is. I want to be clear about the role of staff. So in Ontario, we have a provincial-led planning system, which means that the province of Ontario directs through the Planning Act, through the provincial policy statement, essentially how the land use planning system in Ontario is meant to work. What are the provincial interests? We are then tasked at the local level with implementing that in our context. From a staff perspective, we look at the provincial policy statement, we develop official plan policies. From that official plan policies and the official plan mapping, that is then what the zoning bylaws is based off of. We also have to take into consideration things like conservation authority regulations. So staff have some degree of discretion in looking at technical considerations, but there are other considerations which staff cannot consider. Some of the things that were raised to me in the last few months were things like, for example, as a landowner, I've done stewardship, I've been an excellent steward of the land, and I feel as though this natural environment zoning being proposed on my property is a penalty to me for that good work. I wholeheartedly concur that there are incredible stewards in ACW. There's no question of that. What I've had to explain to landowners is that as staff, I am not able to consider stewardship as a factor in evaluating zoning. That's a factor which staff cannot consider, council can. So the way the process I propose it this evening, is I'd like to walk through sort of what had changed, the properties in which we've provided a list of all the ones in which we were able to reach resolution. And then we'd walk through each of the properties in which there are outstanding objections. We would outline what is the perspective of the landowner as expressed to staff, what is the position of why is the staff recommendation natural environment, and then we seek council's direction. We're not asking council to make any decisions this evening. We're asking you to provide us direction. Following tonight's meeting, we would then go back to change the mapping as per council's direction. And at the subsequent council meeting, that mapping would come forward with a bylaw for a decision. We have prepared the mapping and provided it, so council has a full set of the mapping, and this includes all of the staff-supported changes to date. What this doesn't include is the direction on the outstanding objections. So that's the goal this evening. We are getting there, we are getting close, but there are still a number of outstanding objections that need to be provided direction one way or the other. Okay, thank you. So I'd just like to clarify, one of the questions I had throughout this process was, why are we undertaking this? And the purpose of the zoning bylaw update is to correct the existing mapping to accurately reflect the features that exist on the landscape. So I want to bring, this is one example, and there are many. So on the left-hand side of the screen, what you have is a 2015 aerial imagery of an example area within the township. In the middle, you have the current zoning of that example area, and on the right-hand side, you have the proposed zoning of the example area. What you'll see in the middle, the entire area is zoned natural environment. When we look at the aerial image, we can clearly see that's a worked field. Why is this the case, right? In the majority of the mapping in the ACW zoning bylaw is based off of 1999 black and white aerial photography. It was very difficult to interpret, and so there are errors. This is an opportunity to correct it, but we correct it down to a certain scale. And again, I want to bring this to everyone's attention. When you look at, this is the scale at which we pass zoning mapping. I'm just going to turn around for a second so that I might show everyone in the gallery. This is the scale at which mapping is passed in the agricultural area. So I'm going to use this map. The problem that's come up when we have technology, it's a blessing in that we're more accurate, but it can be a curse in that we can be too accurate. So what I mean by that is, let's say in 2015, the plane flew, the aerial imagery is taken by a plane. Let's say it flew one way. You'll get a shadow on all of those trees going one way. 5 years later, if the plane flew over the same piece of land the other direction, you get a shadow going in the other direction. The zoning bylaw needs to be accurate, but it will never be perfect when it comes to agricultural fields and natural features. We know that these things are changing throughout time. When I mean what we need to have accuracy is that the zoning bylaw is applicable law for building permits. It indicates what land use activities are permitted in what spaces. We want it to be as accurate as possible. I would also note that community members make financial decisions, in part based on what's permitted on a property. And so we want to make sure that the zoning bylaw accurately reflects what is permitted on that property so that we have transparency. So it is important that it's accurate, but I want to stress that in the agricultural area, it will never be perfect. And that's sort of what came up in terms of when we reviewed the changes with a number of the landowners that are outlined in Figure 3. So a number of the changes that were made were incredibly small. So small, in fact, that they wouldn't be distinguishable to the human eye on the zoning maps in the way that we pass them. I'll give you an example. I had one farmer, he came in and he said, I have this area that I turn the tractor in and I don't want it to be zoned to natural environment. I said, okay, that's fine. We took a look. It was 0.04 of an acre. So very, very small. I said, I'm happy to make that change, but I'd just like you to know that when you look at these maps, you won't see the difference. It's just too small based on the scale at which we pass mapping. Okay. Some of the other changes that we made, I did want to note that we did maintain future development mapping that was requested in the Ashfield Township. So there was a number of changes there. We did we wanted to defer a zoning decision on one property. And so as outlined in figure 3, that is the one I did want to bring to council's attention. So this was a property that was discussed at the public meeting. What we have here is a plantation that has some tree health issues. The landowners purchased the property last fall, and at that time, the zoning process had been undergoing, but at the time they purchased the property, it was and remains today zoned AG1. Staff had proposed that the bulk of the area that you're looking at, being the plantation, be zoned NE1. What they've since provided is some documentation from an accredited laboratory indicating that there is, in fact, a tree health issue on this property, and they're actively working towards determining what their options are, I think is fair. So staff are agreeable to leaving the zoning on that property, AG1, for the next 6 months to give that landowner time, and then we can reassess at that time. Does it make sense for a natural environment zoning, or in fact, is that not recommended by staff any longer? This is one in which, again, 57-acre change. Just given the scale of it, I did want to bring that one to council's attention. The rest of the changes outlined in figure 3, I have to say, many of them are along drains. And so in some cases, we would have a property owner request a mapping change to their property, and we would say, yes, you know, from a staff perspective, based on technical elements, we can approve some of the changes requested, but not all of the changes requested. So that's why you're going to see some of the properties listed on both figure 3 and in the later appendix, was because staff could approve a portion of it, but not all of it, and I will point those out as we go along this evening. So the following slides provide council with all outstanding objections known by staff at the time of writing this report, including those previously noted. For ease of review, outstanding objections have been categorized based on relative themes. What I propose to do this evening, with Mayor's direction, would be that I would go through all of the properties in that thematic area, Selena and I, and then we would pause and ask for council's direction on that thematic area before proceeding to the next one.
Councillor Miltenberg, a question or comment, please?
Yeah, just questioning that. So when you're talking about the thematic area, there might be several properties and the decision for all need to be the same, or so you're going to do thematic area, but each one individually within the...
That's right.
Okay.
Yes, I would just present it just for, I think rather than going through all of them, there's quite a few, so I think we should just go through by thematic area. Yes, council can direct as per what you believe for each individual property. That would be appropriate.
Okay, sounds good with that. All right, please proceed.
Okay, we're going to start with those changes in the lakeshore. I will speak to the first one. Selena will speak to the second one. So this is a property located on Kimberly Drive. The lands are identified as a deciduous woodland. More significantly, these lands are currently zoned lakeshore residential, and the staff are proposing a change to natural environment, or NE1. This property is entirely within the 100-year erosion hazard, and the majority is within the 25-year erosion hazard. In speaking with Maitland Valley Conservation Authority staff, there is no opportunity for future development on this property. I have been to site, I've taken a look, it is incredibly steep. There is an active hazard there, we can see it. From our perspective, it is somewhat misleading to leave a lakeshore residential zone on this property. I'll let Selena speak to the next one.
So this, similarly in that theme, is a property on Zion Road. The proposed change, as shown in the blue, is from RC1, or Recreational Campground Zone, to NE1, or Natural Environment. And you can see that large portion along the north portion is along the top of bank. This is a property where the area subject to change is an interaction of both natural environment feature, being that it is identified as a mixed woodland, but also a natural hazard, as it is identified within the 100-year erosion hazard. Staff have had quite a bit of correspondence with this landowner and have further refined the zoning to the extent possible in order to try and garner this landowner the largest amount of flexibility possible when it comes to future development of this property. But given that north area in particular that you see jotting out towards the east is both identified as mixed woodland and is within the 100-year erosion hazard, it is recommended that rezoning be approved as per the consistency across the township.
Okay, so these are the only two within Lakeshore. So we will go back and seek council's direction. It's recommended by staff that the property be rezoned from Lakeshore residential to natural environment or NE1, and we seek the direction of council.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We'll go first to Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, I have a question. Is there any properties in there now, or is it, like, is there hidden cottages in there, or is it just bare land?
Now, the property is vacant.
Okay. Any further questions from council? I think we're very respectful of the both the 25-year erosion hazard and the 100-year. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, so just as a matter of procedure or process, at this point, I've never done this before, so you want me to make or someone on council to say something? Is that what happens?
I'll just, Denise, direction, please.
So we're seeking council's direction on the outstanding mapping changes. So at this point, staff have made a recommendation on the different zoning pieces. Because there's so many, we are that have objections, we're proposing that we walk through them one by one and council say concur with staff recommendation or do not concur with staff recommendation. And then we will then go back and revise the mapping as per council's direction.
Yes, further, please.
So, Mr. Mayor, you were going to ask for a show of hands, or are we all going to?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay with that, Denise?
Yeah, so if it's concur with staff recommendation, show of hands, and then do not concur with staff recommendation, show of hands, I guess it would depend on.
Okay, questions, comments? So we'll deal with the first two. So if council is in support of the recommendation, I will entertain a show of hands.
On 4?
Yep, 1 and 2. Opposed? 1, 2, 3. It fails. Yep. Tie vote fails. Okay.
So for that particular, for this means that this one is not supported. Okay, okay.
Please proceed.
So now we're moving on to the thematic area of smaller agricultural properties or AG4 properties. This property is on Cransford Line. And just to orient ourselves, we're talking about close to the intersection of Dungannon Road and Cransford Line. And council may be familiar that there's a number of smaller properties along that strip of road before it curves to the west as you move south. So this property has a proposed change on the south portion from AG4 to NE1 or natural environment. You can see just to the south that this property is slightly adjacent to the 9 Mile River, and that area of the 9 Mile River, including the property in question where the changes are proposed, it's identified by the province as being an area of natural and scientific interest, or ANSI, as we often say. And we talked about ANSIs a bit earlier in this process, but just to re-summarize, ANSIs are lands and waters containing what is considered by the province to be important natural landscapes or features. So in this case, the 9 Mile River is identified as being a regional significance ANSI for life science, meaning it's an area of biodiversity with plants and a body of water that are, I guess, unique in terms of its significance. As well, this portion of lands is also identified as deciduous woodland. So based on, again, similar to the last one I referenced, the interaction of these features, it is recommended that this rezoning be approved.
Okay. The second one, the only other one in the small agricultural is property on Highway 21. The landowner and I had an opportunity to have a conversation, and they were supportive of the property going to AG4 as opposed to AG1 zoning, so that part is supported. It's the rear portion going to NE1 that is the concern. The feeling by this landowner is that they bought the property specifically because it had AG4 zoning. They are an organic farmer and seek to establish a market garden and orchard. They like the fact that there is natural environment because it helps to buffer from other farms in terms of the organic use. From a staff perspective, it is a deciduous woodlot. It's approximately 2 acres in size, and so it's recommended to be approved. We'd seek the direction of council on these changes.
Okay.
Question
Yep,
first?
question, Councillor Miltenberg first, please.
And feel free to tell me if I'm out of line, but I was really confused about what just happened there. Because generally at a council meeting, I get to hear why the other people are voting differently from me, and maybe they would change my opinion, or maybe I would understand because I saw 100-year erosion and I'm not understanding that. And perhaps they know something that I don't. So is that how this is gonna go? We're not gonna discuss anything, we're just gonna vote? Because we've never done that before. Is that how this is supposed to work?
I'll defer to our planners for a comment,
Yeah,
please.
I'm very open if council would like to have discussion on each of the properties. You could vote individually and have that discussion, and I don't mean vote, it's a directing staff. So we're not passing anything this evening, but yeah, I'm very happy to go through them individually and allow individual consideration and discussion. It's fine by us.
Okay, further, and then Councillor Forster.
I would be far more comfortable doing it individually and being able to question why, because maybe I'm voting incorrectly. I have no idea what just happened, and I'd like to know going forward what's happening.
Okay, Councillor Forster,
Okay,
please.
thank you, Glenn. So what you're telling us here, like, so the landowner's happy or still not happy? They're still not happy.
No.
And is there a way to resolve it? Like, or no?
So we're seeking council's direction on those properties in which there's an objection to the staff recommendation. So staff have recommended natural environment. The land, we've resolved all of the ones that we can from a staff perspective. These are ones which staff are not able to support what the person is asking for. So we are now asking council, what is your direction? Do you concur with the staff recommendation or not?
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, clerk, please.
Yeah, so just to clarify and elaborate, you know, this is a council meeting, and at every question, there's an opportunity for members of council to make a comment. You know, again, through point of order or however you see fit. You know, you have the right to do that before any decision is made. So if you would like to do that, that is your prerogative.
And I asked for that option if council had any questions prior to the show of hands. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Sorry, I guess that's what confused me, because in the order of a regular thing, we'd have a mover and second, and then we'd discuss it. So can we just discuss each one first, or say, is there a discussion, or and
Totally.
lump them together?
Totally, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I'd prefer that.
Clerk, please.
So generally, when it comes to direction, because we're not making the quote final decision on anything until the actual bylaw, the idea is that when the chair says a show of hands, usually that's a consensus is what it is. It's under the assumption that it's going to be something that most everyone agrees on. However, if it's felt that it may be something that is divided on, and you feel that it's appropriate to have a motion, you have every right to move a motion, and then it could be carried or defeated based on that show of hands through a motion. That's entirely up to the members to decide how they would choose to address each situation. If it's felt in the moment that, yep, this is something we can all agree on, then, you know, by mutual consent, you drive on. However, if it's generally seen to be something that may be divisive, that's when you move a motion.
Okay, thank you for that. Deputy Mayor has a comment or a question, and I'll go to Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Yes, and Jennifer opened this up, so it's open for comment. And these last two scenarios, or well, I guess landowner usage, I would like to see them stay the way they are. I don't want to see them go to anyone. So that's my opinion. And is that what you're looking for?
I'd like them separated, and I myself, if I have an opinion, I say why it's my opinion. If you're willing to say why you think it should stay that way, I'd love to learn. I mean, I would have thought the last one was a consensus, which is probably why you called for it, and clearly there's a different thought process that I am completely unaware of. So if anyone who's voting no would like to tell me why, so that I can be educated and perhaps change my vote or vote better, I'd be happy to hear it.
It's a great comment. Great comment. Okay, now, so we've already dealt with the first two. Would you like any clarification then on those? We're good to move on. Dealing with number 3, and you'd like to deal with them separately?
I don't think we can go back. I
No,
might be wrong.
correct.
So I would like in each one to be individual from now
Yep,
on, please.
no problem. Is council okay with that? All right, yep, okay, no problem. So we're dealing with item number 3. Do we have any questions or comments from council for discussion on this? Yes, correct. We're going to break it down one at a time, and it's item number 3. Does anyone have any questions or comments on this?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, absolutely. Please go
I'm sorry,
ahead.
Denise, could you just recap this one again? I'm kind of confused about what we're talking about.
Yep. Thank you. So through the mayor, this is an AG4 property, and you see in green, or sorry, in blue lines, I apologize. That is the portion of the lands proposed to be rezoned. And that is, that proposed rezoning is from AG4 to natural environment. That portion of this property in particular is 2 things. One is that it's identified as deciduous woodland in the natural environment update. The other is that it's identified as ANSI by the province, being that it is within close proximity to the 9 Mile River. And that's kind of the light blue you see on the bottom of the screen bending there. So because of basically the intersection of both that identification in the update as well as it being an ANSI, that is why it's proposed to be rezoned to natural environment, if that provides a bit of additional context.
Okay, thank you for that. A follow-up, Councillor Miltenberg, please.
So in the next one, you gave a reason why they wanted to keep it the same. It was for organic. But is there something here that would be compelling like that, which would be why they do not want it changed?
Yeah, thank you. Through the mayor, that's a great question. In speaking with this landowner, my understanding is that they just see this as a portion of their property which they may want to develop, maybe for an accessory structure in the future, and they're just hoping to have maximum flexibility, and they perceive that as leaving it as AG4 at this time.
Please follow up.
So are there not provisions in the building code that would deny them building in proximity to the river or cutting down trees or whatever it is? Is there not something safeguard already there without changing the zoning? Or is there something already there?
Thank you for that. Staff, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So even if it wasn't zoned natural environment, there is still the forest conservation bylaw, sorry, I've gone back, still the forest conservation bylaw, there's still the conservation authority regulated area. So because it's so close to the Lucknow 9 Mile River, it would be regulated by the conservation authority anyhow. But it's important to note from a zoning bylaw standpoint, we want to be clear about, is there building activities permitted in this area or not? If we leave it zoned AG4, it gives the impression that there would be something permitted there, when in fact, based on the Conservation Authority regulations and the Forest Conservation Bylaw, there may not be. So I think that's the difficulty, is that it becomes confusing potentially for the landowner to understand what's permitted in different parts of the property.
Yeah, I think that makes absolute sense. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
That makes sense. The onus then would be upon the landowner. The danger would be for resale value where someone thinks it's AG4 and maybe is not aware of the layers, or can they see those layers if they do due diligence on the property?
I mean, technically, the area of natural and scientific mapping is all public information, but I wouldn't say that's a normal due diligence exercise.
Okay, we're all clear. Okay. Clerk, please.
To keep things kind of clean moving forward, because that's how I like to do things, I'm gonna, with the direction of council to consider each rezoning separately, I'm gonna suggest that each decision receive a motion separately. That way we know exactly what decision we're making for each single one. So the motion, my proposal for this one is that the rezoning proposed on 83968 Cransford Line be approved. So we will basically take what the property is and what the recommendation is as the motion. We'll need a mover and a seconder. We'll have the discussion, and then we will vote on it. Procedurally, a tied vote is failed.
Correct.
Okay, so that's how we will go through each. About how many do we have? Just out of curiosity. Give or take.
20?
Okay.
Problem. Okay. So we're dealing with item number 3, which is 83968, and I will entertain a mover and a seconder that this be approved. Councillor Miltenberg moves, Councillor Forrester seconds. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Opposed?
That is defeated.
Motion fails. Thank you very much. The next one, please. Okay, so this is 82215 Blue Water Highway. Entertain a motion and a seconder to approve. Moved by Councillor Miltenberg, seconded by Councillor Hickey. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is defeated. Thank you. Please continue on.
Okay, the next two are unregulated locally significant wetlands. So, want to bring council's attention to the fact that as of April 1st of this year, the Conservation Authorities Act, there was a new regulation passed. So it's called Ontario Regulation 4124, and it substantially changed the definition of a wetland in Ontario for the purposes of the Conservation Authorities Act. So that happened partway through this process. So for this property here, 37584 Glens Hill Road, the area is the area outlined in NE1. It is identified as a thicket swamp. This site was a site visit was conducted by the Huron County biologist and stewardship coordinator, and they are of the opinion that the lands are an ephemeral wetland. The landowner's perspective is this is a wet area on their property. They had pastured it in years past. I believe the landowners also provided correspondence directly to council. As of April 1st, these lands are unregulated by the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority. Whoops. But we are still recommending it be natural environment as they are considered to be, it is still considered to be a natural area. So that is the recommendation on this one. Similarly here, this is on Morris Tract Line. This is a portion of a property, again, it's identified as an unevaluated wetland. It is a marsh meadow. So looking back through time and speaking with the landowner, you know, it's understood that this area has not been farmed in approximately 50 years. The lands simply aren't conducive to cropping practices. However, the landowner does not wish for these lands to be zoned natural environment. And I would note again, as of April 1st, these lands are now unregulated as a wetland by Maitland Valley Conservation Authority. Staff are recommending natural environment, and these are the only two within this category.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Councillor Miltenberg first, please. Yep, a motion to approve this, seconded by Councillor Hickey, and then comment, Councillor Miltenberg, please.
So I'm talking about that wetland. I know exactly what that is because we have one on our property. How big is that?
I can look that information up right now if council can give me 60 seconds to do so.
problem.
And I ask because we drained our farm 2 years ago and we were given the choice of taking it out or leaving it in there. And we opted to leave it in there, but you're saying the rules changed April 1st of 2024, that you can no longer drain them.
No.
Clarification, please.
No,
please.
what changes of April 1st, 2024 is this space is no longer regulated as a wetland by the Maitland Valley Conservation Authority. It no longer meets the definition of a wetland under those regulations.
So we're trying, through you, Mr.
Yep,
Mayor,
please go
we're
ahead.
trying to maintain what was there before, that it was a wetland. We're trying to keep it a wetland.
We're suggesting that it still remains a natural area, even though it's not regulated by the Conservation Authority.
Okay.
But yes, I would note for council, this is a change as of April 1st.
And through the mayor, I'll just add, this is just under 9 acres. It's about 8.8.
Okay, thank you for that. Further questions, comments of council? All in favor of the recommendation for approval? Opposed? That is defeated. Thank you. And the next one on Morris Tract, please, would be 81543 Morris Tract, recommended for approval of rezoning. Moved by Councillor Miltenberg, seconded by Councillor Hickey. Questions, comments? Councillor Miltenberg first.
And the size of that one.
Just get that. This is when technology comes in handy.
Sure, you can ask a question,
But
Councillor
is
Forster.
there buildings near that? Or what is that, like, odd shape? It says, I can't even, like this right here, what is, so that's already NE4?
No, so that is the area that we're considering, that's the area where the change is proposed. No, so that's a deciduous woodland that's already been zoned natural environment in the current zoning bylaw. It's this sort of, if you drive by, it has a few, there's no tree cover on this area. It's more of a cattails and that sort of thing. It's essentially a wet area on the farm. It has some more organic type soils, and it's just not been conducive to farming, so they have been going around it. Again, the past landowners, looking back through time, we don't have evidence of it being farmed since the 1950s. I think it's not conducive. It's a wet area, so it's just an area that they kind of go around.
And through the mayor, this area is just about 4.3 acres.
Okay. Questions, comments further? Good count. Yeah, please continue, Councillor Forster.
But it could be drained, or is that not possible?
I wouldn't want to say conclusively whether or not draining would make a difference in this case. I think the soils, it may or may not, so I won't say one way or the other. It's no longer regulated by the Conservation Authority, so conceivably, yes, if they wanted to tile drain that field, they could go close to or within that feature currently.
We're good? Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I know that area and it can be drained.
Okay. Further questions or comments? Those in favor of the approved rezoning? Opposed? Motion is defeated. Thank you. Please continue.
Okay, so the next series of properties, of which there are several, are all provincially significant wetlands. So again, provincially significant wetlands is a classification that's done by the province. It's done by the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. Many of these spaces have been designated or classified as provincially significant wetlands going back a number of years in the township. So we'll start on St. Helens Line. This is a property in which we're actually out on site last week, had a good discussion with the landowner. We removed all the natural environment zoning along the drain. So this is one of those examples wherein we were able to support part of the change, but back in behind there is a portion of the Anderson Creek provincially significant wetland. I think the landowner's perspective is that, you know, they've removed trees from that area. They've been cropping around it. Their perspective is that they think calling it provincially significant is maybe not as, it's not maybe as significant as that sounds. The analogy he used is it's making it out to be a stretch limousine when in fact it's more like a smart car. So those were his words. Again, really good discussion though. I really did appreciate the opportunity to go out and take a look. But this is classified as a provincially significant wetland. So we are noting that it changed from NE1 to NE5. So I wanted to note while we're here, the reason we'd like to have provincially significant wetlands zoned to NE5 is for a couple of reasons. Provincially significant wetlands are sort of the most protected space within the township. They're also an area wherein landowners are eligible for 100% property tax exemption through what's known as the CLIPT program, Conservation Land Tax Incentive Program. So we want to be very clearly identified for both staff and landowners where are the provincially significant wetlands throughout the township. What we've done is that provincially significant wetlands are NE5. Everything else that's natural environment is NE1. So just so when we go through these. So again, from our perspective, we're just classifying it from NE1 to NE5 to reflect the fact that it is a provincially significant wetland. Again, here, there is a change from AG1 to NE5. There's a couple of parts on this property. First of all, along Zion Road, this is the portion of the property I alluded to, or the example I alluded to earlier, wherein a previous landowner had allowed a portion of it to fall foul. There was a new landowner and they created a hayfield, so by all means that was removed. The feeling here is that they don't believe that the area is a provincially significant wetland, and so yes, they're not in agreement with that designation. Okay. Is there anything you want to add to that one? No. Okay. Again, here this is a change from.
Just a minute.
Oh.
If we're gonna, sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead,
If we're
Councillor.
gonna go through them separately, if we go more than two at a time, I'm gonna forget what you said about the
Okay.
first one, if that makes sense. I'm not that smart. I'm just good looking.
Denise, I would suggest we do them one by one. I know that if that's okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
So there's approximately 5 in this category, and they are all areas that are provincially significant wetlands.
Okay, cool. So the first one we're going to deal with is 86-553 St. Helens Line. A mover and a seconder for approval. Moved by Councillor Miltenberg, seconded by Councillor Hickey. Discussion, please. Councillor Miltenberg.
So the any one to any five, aside from that CLIP program, which I'm fully aware of and is great, what else is the difference between any one and any five to the landowner? What is he stopped or started from,
So under the provincial policy statement, I'll answer if Selena wants to chime in by all means. Under the provincial policy statement, provincially significant wetland is sort of essentially a no-go area. We can't, if you had another natural environment area and someone wanted to propose development, they could do an environmental impact study to demonstrate no negative impacts. There isn't that opportunity within a provincially significant wetland. It's simply an area that the province has deemed there's no development permitted here. That's the difference. Now, I will be honest, there are areas in the township where we have provincially significant wetlands that have existed, but they already had an accessory structure. Let's say they already had a cabin or a sugar shack. That's fine. That can continue to stay. There's areas we have provincially significant wetlands and there's been trails developed over time. That's fine. If the areas are able to be logged, you're still allowed to log an area like this, under a notice of intent. But oftentimes the soil composition is such that they may not lend themselves to harvesting as often as a deciduous woodland. So those are generally the differences. They're essentially the most protected spaces from the province's standpoint.
Okay, to follow up, Councillor Miltenberg, thank you for that.
So to recap that, if it's changed from any one to any five and there is not an existing trail or a sugar shack, it cannot be put in there. Can you get something out of any five back to any one, or is this like we're there forever? Because quite frankly, we need to protect our wetlands, but I've been in some provincially significant wetlands that are not really, they're the smart car. I agree.
Okay. I think passive recreation, I think if someone wants to, have a trail through a provincially significant wetland, I think if the soils and the conditions allow for that, I think that has been done, reasonably in many cases. I think the point of provincially significant wetlands, the sense is that there's a recognition by the province, these are the most protected spaces, and the landowners don't have an ability to yield an income or use those properties, which is why the CLIPT program exists. It's to factor that in, right? These are spaces in which you can't do much with, and so we're not going to charge any taxes for that portion of your property.
Okay, yep, well explained. Follow up, please.
Yeah, that was well explained. My question then would be, if you have a any one and you think it should be a any five, is that something you could approach the planner for and say, I think this is provincially significant, would you please change the zoning, or would that cost me?
Thank you for that. Denise, please.
So I've never had anyone say that they want to have a provincially significant wetland. We at the local level are not able to make that call, neither at the township level nor at the county level. That is strictly done by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry. They do reevaluate the wetlands every now and again, and the boundaries do change. And you're going to see an example of that later on this evening. As recently as 2017, we've seen boundaries change in the township, for which there is no notification, there's no consultation process, it is done strictly by the province. So this is an exercise of us essentially taking that database that from the province, this is where they're saying the provincially significant wetlands are, and we're just reflecting that on our mapping. We're not making any interpretation.
Okay, please continue.
Okay, I just got confused. So I think you just said that we can't declare it an any five, but isn't that exactly what we're doing here, or the recommendation is?
So the NE5 is the local ACW approach to identifying where are the provincially significant wetlands in the township. We don't determine where they are. We're just saying, let's zone them NE5 so that everyone's clear what is a provincially significant wetland and what is otherwise a natural environment feature.
Yeah, I'm not following.
Okay, clerk, please.
Jennifer, no matter what we zone it, the province is still gonna see it as a wetland, or as a provincially significant wetland. Doesn't matter, we could color it pink. It's still gonna be a dark green in their eyes, in the province's eyes, no matter what.
But it wouldn't be for someone building. Is that the difference is here?
Brett can chime in here.
Yeah, Brett, please comment.
So when it comes to these provincially lands and other things, whether the township zones it one way or another, when it comes to permitting and certain things, there are certain checks and balances, and they're written into our zoning bylaw, and there's obligations through applicable law for prior to permits being issued that certain things are evaluated. So even with some of the examples that, weren't supported today, within those changes themselves, if somebody wanted to go develop in those areas, there may be certain things that need to be done, such as environmental impact studies, maybe something looking at water tables, for example. We still need to do proper checks and balances to ensure things are still okay. So just by not zoning it isn't a right, necessarily. There could be a few things that need to be done. It does potentially avoid a zoning application or something down the road. So regardless, with these NE5 lands, yeah, like there'll be layers there that the province has said you need to check these things. I just pulled it up. We have zoned a couple NE5 in the past. They were evaluated and they were determined, they were hardwood, I remember, and they were clearings and stuff. So it's not, just because you have NE5 today doesn't necessarily mean it can't be evaluated and looked at through EISs and certain things, I don't think anyways, but it has been changed before in the past for people to develop areas. They just had to do the necessary studies, which would happen one way or the other, for the most part in these areas.
Exactly. Selena and then Jennifer, please.
If I can just add, I guess the way I think about it is the NE5 zone is just our way of saying in our zoning bylaw, this is what the province has said. So, yeah, to Denise's point, they are establishing where the provincially significant wetlands are. We're just reflecting that through our NE5 zoning.
Yeah, following the PPS. Deputy Mayor, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't agree with that because you can go and look in the spring and it might be wet, and I don't know where the province, never seen anybody from the province walking through any of my country to look at any of these wetlands. So they're looking at it through a satellite or something. So I don't think we have to listen to the province at all on this. Like, if we decide to zone this, you're trying to get it. Oh, please. If we decide to zone this, if we do take it to the NE-5, it's almost impossible for those people to do anything with that after that time. So I would far sooner see it left in NE1. At least then Brent can go out, make us walk through the place, and if it is good for a building or whatever it is, he can do it. But if not, then we leave it. Thank you.
Quick thing, follow up, Councilor Milton.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Those are the kind of answers to why people are saying no that I've been looking for. So, and that was kind of where I was trying to get with my multitude of questions. And were there safeguards? Because I too am reluctant to put into something you can't get it back out of if, as Brett says, there's steps to safeguard it anyway. I'd have to concur. I know I'm going to make the motion for everything to get it on the floor, but I thank you, Bill, for saying why you're voting no. I like that.
Okay, any further questions or comments from council on this item 86553 St. Helens line? Okay, all in favor of the motion for approval? Opposed? And that is defeated. Thank you. We'll now deal with 86119. Would you like, I'll entertain a mover and a seconder for that. Moved by Councilor Miltenberg, seconded by Councilor Hickey. Discussion, questions for our planners on this? Yes, Councilor Miltenberg, please.
Can we do the real brief overview? I forget where we are.
So there's a lot of corrections on this one. As you can see, the feature just wasn't mapped well in the past. So there's a lot going to AG1, which the landowner agreed with. Several of the changes, they said yes, that's generally where the feature is. There was a portion of it going again from NE1 to NE5. They did not agree with that. And there was a small portion on the east side when it was going from, AG1 to NE1, and they didn't agree with that. But the general kind of following of the lines they were fine with. There was just the provincially significant wetland they were questioning.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
I'm happy to change the AG1 to the NE1. I'm not really agreeing with the NE1 going to NE5.
Okay, thank you for that. Clerk, please.
So the motion you have is to approve the rezoning here on this one.
Can I change
so
my mind on
that you can,
You-
but it is up to you because you moved it.
Well, yeah, and we, you know, it doesn't matter, whoever the mover and the seconder did to get it on the table, and that's the purpose.
Yeah.
You can vote whatever way you want on it.
Well, can I vote on an amended one?
You can, I'm not gonna get into amending. We're just gonna agree that if you want it changed as the mover, you can change it.
So I either say I agree with everything on there, or I don't agree with anything.
So right now, your motion is to agree with everything that's on there.
Can I rescind my motion? Can I do that? Or do we have to vote on everything?
You can tell me how you want it changed.
I would like to make my motion that we agree with the planner on changing the AG1 to NE1, but not the NE1 to NE5.
Okay, is council clear with that? Now, I'll just
clear.
give the clerk a moment.
So I would suggest that we split it up, so we deal with the AG1 and to the NE1 first, and then we'll deal with the NE1 to the NE5,
Yep.
okay?
Okay?
Is that,
Okay.
if that?
Are you
as
good with
mover,
that
you
as
good
a
with
mover?
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Are you good with that as a seconder, Councillor Hecky? Okay, so we're dealing with moving the recommendation of AG1 to NE1. That's the motion,
And that's Miltenberg and
Hickey.
Hickey.
correct?
Okay.
Okay,
Mhm.
for the questions, comments, all in favor of this motion? Opposed? Motion is defeated. Thank you. And do you have a secondary motion on the NE1 to NE5?
Well, that means I agree with it and I
That-
don't, so I don't have a motion.
Okay, no problem. Does anyone have a motion for that or not?
Well, we need on the table.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
exactly. And a seconder for that would be Councillor
okay.
Hickey. Yeah, we need to make a decision, a recommendation to planning on this. So discussion on moving the NE1 to NE5. If not, all in favor of the motion? And opposed? That is defeated. Thank you. Please continue with the next one, Denise.
A number of the ones coming up are the NE1 to the NE5, so I wonder if we can still go through one at a time, just letting council know that is the nature of all of the ones upcoming.
And about how many in that group that is moving from NE1 to NE5 approximately?
There's a few. Yeah, 4.
Do any of them
Or
have?
3, sorry,
Sorry.
3. Okay. Would you like to do the 3 together?
Clerk, please.
I still recommend that we do them separately.
Okay.
I just want to, are there any others that have the combination of zonings?
Yes.
Okay.
I can explain, but not the 3. So
Okay.
these ones, again, it's NE1 to NE5, and again, it's just noting in the bottom right-hand side of the screen, that is an area which is part of the Saratoga Wetland Complex, which is provincially significant, and so it was just a mapping correction from NE1 to NE5.
Okay, let's deal with the next one, please.
Moving, right?
No,
Yes.
One at a time.
yep. Denise, do you have any preliminary?
No, that is the sense, they just were not pleased with the NE5 zoning, with it being provincially significant. Today it is NE1.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're dealing with 37225 Glens Hill Road.
Right.
Moved by Councillor Miltenberg, seconded by Councillor Hickey. Discussions, question of our planner on this?
None.
None? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? It is defeated. Thank you. Next one, please, Denise.
Okay, this is one on Heron Line. This is an interesting property in that we looked at the existing zoning. The existing residence is underneath that AG 4-43. There's also an accessory shed, and there's a little bit of an additional cleared area to the south, which also has the proposed AG 1-43. So there was an existing NE1 zone on this property. It is a provincially significant wetland. It is part of the Saratoga Wetland Complex. So we are proposing that that portion go to NE5. The balance of the property would be NE1, save and except for around the house. What we were looking to achieve here was, in meeting with the landowner, we understood that their current house is built right up against essentially the natural environment area, and it didn't allow for a lot of expansion potential for either the house or the accessory building. So what we did was we designed a special AG 1-43 zone that would allow for the expansion to the east of both their dwelling and their accessory building. And we made it such that the accessory building could actually go into the front yard. Just because of the way they're already set up on the lot, I thought if they wanted to extend the shop out to the east, that would allow them to do so without needing a zoning bylaw amendment. So I put this forward to the landowner as a proposal. Their feeling coming back was that they still feel that the NE5 zone is incorrect. This is one of the ones where the province did reevaluate the boundary in 2017. Again, the landowner indicated for us there was no notification or consultation process at that time. And so they just generally do not agree with the NE5 zone.
Okay, thank you for that. You want to move this or? A question.
I have a question.
Okay,
and I would
comment
like to
first,
make a
please.
motion after that. So your AG 43, which by the way is a new one for me, is so that he can build because he's already in an NE?
No, so there's already a dwelling and an accessory building in a cleared area.
Right.
But yes, that building is in an NE1 today. And so it's a bit confusing. If they were to come in for a building permit looking to expand that building and they're in an NE1 zone, I thought that could cause an issue at that time. So we thought, let's make the cleared area an AG1 special zone and sort of make any building activities more straightforward into the future. It's not to say that they have any immediate plans to do that, but they might wish to, or to have resale value. So I think on this one, the AG 1-43 is in sort of the best interest of the property. It's the NE1 to NE5, which the landowner does not agree with.
Yep, correct. Yep, please,
So
Councilor Miltenberg.
the motion, which I'm not sure how to say it, I would like to change the NE to the AG 143 to help the landowner. And then a second motion would be to change the NE1 to NE5. Did I say that correctly?
Yep, you did. So we're going to split that, if that's your desire. Okay? So, do we have a motion? Do we have a motion to move? Councilor Miltenberg, you can comment on it if you would care to make that motion.
I would,
Okay, and that is NE1 to AG 43.
yes.
Seconder is Councilor Hickey. Discussion for the questions of our planner. Please.
I really think we should do that. I know we've been having just the no vote to make everything fail, but from what I can tell, this would really help the person. And we're still, his objection is the NE1 to NE5, which I understand. I really feel like this one should go through.
Yeah, you're observing that. I concur with your comments. Okay, any further questions or comments? If not, we're clear on the motion. All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. An additional motion on the NE1 to NE5. Councilor Miltenberg moves, Hickey seconds. Questions or comments on this? Not, all in favor of the motion? And opposed? Motion fails. Thank you very much. Next one, please, Denise.
Okay. Again, this is on St. Augustine Line. It's a portion of the St. Helens Wetland Complex. It is to zone it to NE5. And again, the proposed change here, again, the landowner's perspective is that this is an area they had described it as an area where they thought there had been a plugged drain and such that they would be able to resolve that situation. We then brought to their attention that no, in fact, this is a provincially significant wetland. And that's not their wish.
Fair enough. Motion to move this from any 1 to any 5. Moved by Councillor Miltenberg, seconded by Councillor Hickey. Questions or comments of our planner on this? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is defeated. Thank you. Next one, please, Denise.
Another any 1 to any 5, Saratoga Wetland Complex. And again, the staff recommendation is any 5.
So this is recommended to move from any 1 to any 5. With this roll number, and it'll be moved by Councillor Miltenberg, seconded by Councillor Hickey. Questions or comments for planner on this? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? And that is defeated. Thank you. Next one.
So now we're moving on to a theme of where it's been identified by landowners that they have done area improvements. So for this particular property, you see in the hatching, there is a proposed change from AG1 to NE1. This area is identified as both a young plantation and a mixed woodland. This was planted by the landowner throughout the 1990s and 2000s. He said, you know, this was a reflection of being poor production quality and having some grant money that allowed him to plant these areas. It's now sort of become a bit of a part of that wider, I'll call it natural environment function. You can see sort of the areas already zoned around it. So this landowner is looking for this area not to be rezoned because he feels as though he was the one who planted these trees and it would be a penalization of his work in doing so. So that's sort of the gist of this one. It is recommended that this rezoning be approved.
So we're moving, the recommendation is to move it from AG1 to anyone. A mover and a seconder for this, please. Hickey moves, Councillor Hickey, Councillor Forrester seconds. Any further questions or comments of our planner? Councillor Miltenberg, please.
This is a question, I think, for Brett. It looks like it's just part of something that's already there, and I'm interpreting, I have no idea where this is, I'm not good with maps, that the landowner just doesn't want it to be called NE1 trees because he's the one who planted the trees. But does that really affect any building, or is it just to get the mapping correct, or is it really going to impinge on him in some way?
Great question. Brett, please.
So in a case, well, similar cases have been seen today too. If somebody were to apply for a building permit, whether it be up to the woodlot or adjacent to it, having it zoned properly or something that identifies it speeds up the process a little bit, just from an assessment perspective. Otherwise, we would have to go out and we'd turn on the GIS, we'd do it. We'd probably end up doing a site visit, at which point it'd be identified as, oh, there's probably, you know, is this an error in the mapping? Is the zoning correct? At which point we would involve the planners, the biologists, the forestry officer, maybe Maitland Valley. Depends on the situation. We bring in the right people to get the right informed decision made. So the long answer is like you wouldn't necessarily just be getting a building permit there. It needs to be looked at, and a lot of times, you know, we just go out to site and on the ground it is what it is, and we've historically never, you know, had issuing any permits had one problem actually in cases like this, to be honest, with identifying the areas, because you stand there, you look at it, and on the ground it is what it is. It just, if we can identify it properly or improve accuracy on the mapping, let's say, is a better way to phrase that, it just kind of speeds up that assessment. But at the end of the day, it would be looked at on site, on the ground, and addressed accordingly. Like, it could be determined through an on-site visit that the natural, you know, line should have been drawn, and it was just because of how Denise explained at the start there that the mapping just wasn't updated to properly reflect what was on the ground. So
Okay, you have follow-up, please, Councillor Miltenberg.
It's a great answer. So following up on that, I'm hearing that what's actually there would naturally correct whatever wanted to be built. Like, you wouldn't go out there and say, well, this is agriculture and it doesn't matter that the trees are 20-foot tall because you can see them. But by zoning it this way, it might be cheaper for the person who's trying to build because they don't have to involve all these site visits? Or is it, at the end of the day, 6 in one, half dozen on the other.
Thanks for the question. Brett, please.
So I don't think the cost would really factor in, because if it's zoned natural environment today, you would, to get into it or certain distances to it, you would have to rezone. If it stays AG1, there's certain barriers that are removed from the process, but there's still certain checks that would still have to be done regardless. And it could be looked at that the area actually should be natural environment based on, an error in the mapping, because just the reality is, it's done by aerial, the maps, to the best of the abilities of everybody, and it's not perfect, and there are, errors and omissions, both, good and bad. So that's why it just needs to be assessed on the ground. And in a case like this one, it may be looked at. I haven't been to this property. They're just, full disclosure there. If somebody were to apply to build in there, we'd probably say, no, this was a mapping area, and this probably should have been zoned natural environment, and that starts to put the checks in. And if it was found to be, then, it is what it is on the ground at the end of the day. But unless there's some specific rezoning that was done previous that allowed for something to go on, which isn't the case today. There's no specific application. The studies haven't been done. So.
Okay, thank you for that. Deputy Mayor, please.
Yeah, and just clarification, and this will be to Brett, but from what I understand and know is that if we take that to any one, then if anything happens, it has to be rezoned, and there is a rezoning cost, is there not?
Thanks for the question. Brett, please.
Well, there is a rezoning cost, and if it's changed to natural environment today, it would have to be applied for and gone through, but it may need to be anyways, because it could be looked at, in a year or two by, myself or a planner or anybody that's looking to develop there, if they were, and it could be said that was an error in the mapping. They wouldn't have full, advantage of the conversation today, and we'd be right back. They'd say, that appears to be an error. It appears it should be natural environment based on the same tests that are being applied, and they would be asked to, we would have to figure out how to best address that situation, which may be, an application to council to properly address it, because staff may take the opinion on this scenario or another. And I don't mean to, pinpoint this one exactly, but that it's natural environment just by, what it looks like on the ground again.
Thank you for that explanation. Follow up, Deputy Mayor.
But it shouldn't be a mapping error if we're deciding tonight that it's not natural environment. That it is mapped, but not a natural environment. Because what it is going to be down to the council's opinion and the staff's opinion. And believe me, I appreciate your opinion. But it's just that I do believe that if we change this to natural environment, it's just another rezoning that gentleman or lady or whoever it is at that point in time will have to do. And anyways, that's my opinion.
Okay. Denise, please.
Yeah, I think just in this section, what we wanted, the thematic reason was that these are stewardship projects that have been undertaken by the landowner. There's no suggestion that they want to develop in these areas. They just didn't want to have them zoned natural environment because they felt as though they had done a good thing and they didn't want to have it feel like it was made natural environment. The perception to them was that it felt like a penalty. I think from the staff perspective, what we're saying is just that, it's just about the existing features or the features that exist on the landscape. It's just about being transparent. This area has now matured. The trees were planted. It's now matured into a woodlot. We certainly don't want to take anything away from that good stewardship. I mean, that's absolutely recognized. But the fact is, it's now a woodlot. And so it would be treated in the same consistent way as all of the other woodlots.
Yep, great explanation. Councilor Milberg, please.
I agree with Brett and Denise that you're going to look at and you're going to see it's a woodlot. But for me, perception is a lot. It's what perception drives things, and it really doesn't matter if it's accurate or if not. If the perception is if you plant trees, it's going to bite in the butt 20 years down the road, then we're not going to plant trees. I don't want to discourage that. And I think if Brett says, well, we're going to do a site visit and we're going to see trees and we're going to be going, oh, this must be a mapping error, and that the trees themselves will trigger that we're not going to put something here, because you can say it's AG1, but if you got 20-foot trees that whoever planted them or what, then that to me is enough. If the perception of planting trees stops people from planting trees because they don't want it rezoned into something that it clearly is, then I wouldn't wanna put that out there.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further questions or comments? Brett, please, excuse me.
Yeah, just one more thing, because yeah, and maybe having the map in these conversations helps. We can go back on specific situations to just to clarify the intent. It's just trying to like, they're assessed on a, you know, one for one bay. Like there's no set standard. It's just looked at the time, and I can honestly say I've never had a circumstance arise where like that's gone into the bush like that and had to deal with it. It's just like you said, they just want to be good stewards of the land, and yeah, so like the other problem is just when we come to assess these things, the AG1 zoning themselves just kind of prohibits clearing too in the zone. So there's just things we're just trying to balance. We're not trying to, you know, dictate anything council didn't want. There's just other things in there that we're trying to balance, and it's a difficult line when you're assessing these things at the time. So
Thank you for that. Follow up, Councilor Miltenberg, please.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I understand exactly what you're trying to do, but what I'm saying is if the perception from the third party is, and they don't understand it to the level that you're talking about, and the perception is I shouldn't have planted that tree, I don't want that perception out there. You know, I'm all about planting trees and good stewardship, and I think we need to be aware of that perception, erroneous or not, it's there.
Fair enough. Any additional questions or comments on this particular 37602 School Road? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? That is defeated. Thank you. Next one, please, Denise.
Okay, the next two span a property line, so I'm just gonna show them quickly at the same, just so council understands. It's the same sort of area, and it just extends over two property lines. That's why it's being shown as two. So again, these lands have been planted by the landowner between 1999 and 2006. They've matured over the past 20 years, and so the idea now is that the plantation would be proposed to be rezoned to NE1. Again, this change is consistent with how woodlots are mapped across the township. It's recommended to go from AG1 to NE1.
Okay, thank you for that. The move by Councilor Miltenberg, seconded by Councilor Hickey for approval. Questions or comments of Denise on this? Not? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? It is defeated. Thank you very much. Next one, please.
Same property, just a different address. Or sorry, it's a different property. Sorry, the same feature across a property line. Sorry about that.
Okay, so we're dealing with 36032, moving from AG1 to NE1. Moved by Councilor Miltenberg, seconded by Councilor Hickey. Questions or comments of our planner? Not? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? This is defeated. Thank you very much. Next one, please.
This is one additional one that was brought to my attention, so I have included. It's on Westmount Line. This is an area containing Allen's Creek. I'd indicate to council that where the drains, where there was a little bit of natural environment along a drain, we had certainly clipped all of that back. This was a larger area than staff felt comfortable removing at our discretion, and so that's why we're bringing it forward to council. This area was replanted by the landowner. It's identified as a young plantation. There is Allen's Creek, which is a CA regulated water course in the middle. It sort of lines up with the other natural environment area that's there. And as I say, the reason staff did not make this change at our discretion is just that it was a larger area than what we had otherwise made the change. At this point, we are recommending that it be natural environment.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Moved by Councilor Miltenberg for approval, seconded by Councilor Hickey. Questions, comments? Get you next time. Okay? All in favor of this approval? Opposed? And that is defeated. Thank you very much. Next one, please, Denise.
There's one in the report that I'm not seeing on the application, so I bring council's attention to page 15 of my report. I'm just not sure why it's not in this section. One second. Is it? Oh, is it later on? It's in this section. Oh. Sorry, one second. Can you join Zoom for a second? Sorry, there's one more on Sharps Creek Line, very similar situation. It's on page 15 of the report. Maybe. Could you send me this link? 80978 Sharps Creek line. It's on page 15 of the report.
Page 91 in your agenda.
It's all right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Selena will bring that one up. I'll just stop sharing for a second so she can share. And in this case, what we have is, it was a project, again, done by the landowners. Staff clipped it back to the point that we felt we could. This is a wetland that is in fact regulated by the Conservation Authority. So this is a case wherein a landowner did a project, it was quite successful, and it is now regulated by the Conservation Authority. Again, their feeling is that they have no intention of developing in this area, but they simply don't want it to be zoned natural environment as, you know, it was done at their own volition, and they just feel that that's unfair.
Okay, thank you very much.
No?
No.
Could we pause for a few minutes while you guys get this up?
Sure.
Just
I could use my report too. Sorry, one sec.
Yeah, how be we recess just for,
Sorry.
yeah, a couple of minutes on this, okay?
Let me
Thank
grab
you.
that one. No, it's not. Sorry, I got it. I got it. I can't get it. You don't have the link? Here, let me send it to you. Okay.
Thank you. Perfect.
And you could look on this after.
Pardon?
I'm gonna need a good look on. I'm gonna need a good look on this after, so.
So you know what to do?
So we know what to do later on. Which is fine. I don't see. We can get serious anyway.
This thing's getting mad at me. This is too big. So, do I not? Yeah, it's not in there. I mean, at some point we could have just done all of them. Right? If I had reviewed all of them. And the council could have just said unsupportable. Right?
Staff or planners, are we good to continue? Okay, thank you very much. I would like to resume our meeting. And I will pass it back to our planners to discuss, excuse me. I'd like to pass it back to our planners to discuss 80978 Sharps Creek, please.
So through the mayor, this is the one that Denise just mentioned. I just have it on the screen here to describe or show visually the area that we're talking about.
So again, this is when we clipped it back at the north end. You can see staff were agreeable to doing that. That was consistent with how we treat other properties. The balance of the property is a plantation. It is sparse in some areas, but there is a regulated wetland that's been built within it. And so that is why the recommendation is natural environment.
Okay, so it has been recommended, 80978 on Sharps Creek be moved from AG1 to NA1. Mover and a second. Councillor Forrester moves. Councillor Miltenberg seconds. Questions or comments for our planner on this? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? And that is defeated. Thank you very much. Next one, please.
Sorry, I'm going to ask Selena. Yeah, if you don't mind advancing them, that would be great. Sure. Okay, so this next section is just, there are individuals who just generally felt as though they don't agree with just the principle of zoning and interaction with private property rights. So we will go through these. Yep, we'll let Selena speak to this one.
So this is a property on Zion Road. There are two areas proposed to be rezoned. The area east of the house here is identified as coniferous woodland. The area to the north is identified as a young plantation. There was a site visit conducted with myself and the Forest Conservation Officer in the fall. It was unclear based on the site visit without further evaluation whether or not that east area would qualify as a woodlot under the Forest Conservation Bylaw. The property owner simply does not wish to see these lands be rezoned, and so this is why it's brought before you today. In terms of consistency across the township, it is recommended by staff that the rezoning be approved.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And it would be moved by Councillor Miltenberg, seconded by Councillor Hickey, to approve the rezoning on 36666 Zion Road from AG1 to NA1. Yes, please, a question or comment?
How big are these?
Through the mayor, from my memory, the area to the east is about 5 acres or so. The area to the north is over 10 acres.
Okay.
It looks like trees from here. Are they not trees? But they want it to be AG1 simply because they don't want it rezoned. Okay, thank you.
Okay, further questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is defeated. Thank you. Next one, please.
This is a property owned by the same landowner. It's noted by staff there are no proposed changes on this property at this time. Rather, the landowner is requesting that the existing area zone natural environment be rezoned to AG1. There was a site visit conducted by staff on the same day, again with the Forest Conservation Officer. The Forest Conservation Officer in this case is much more confident that the area zone natural environment does qualify as a woodlot under the Forest Conservation Bylaw. It's staff's opinion that this zoning is consistent with what exists across the township, so it's recommended that this request for rezoning be denied.
Yeah, okay, yep, moved by Councillor Miltenberg, seconded Councillor Forrester. So that is on 85499 Blue Water Highway, and the request is for it to be rezoned NA1 to AG1, and is recommended denial on that.
Correct.
Question to Councillor Miltenberg, please.
So the same landowner doesn't want his zoning changed because he wants to keep it all as it is. So the trees are to stay as AG1. But on this property, he wants it changed so that the trees become AG1.
Correct.
That appears to be arguing both sides of the story there to me. I think we need to protect our trees, so I am going to vote that we deny this.
That is the that's the recommendation, and that is the motion for denial. Just so we're clear. Councillor Hickey, no, you.
Sorry, I was just gonna confirm, are we voting on the removal or on the staff, on the denial?
We're voting
on the denial.
Our clerk, please.
So the motion will be that the requested proposed rezoning on 85499 Blue Water Highway be denied. So in other words, you're denying their request to have it changed.
Are we clear? Are we clear, Councillor Hickey? No more time, you're good? Okay, all in favor of the motion for the application rezoning to be denied? Opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Next one, please.
Sure. So this is a property on Hawkins Road. You can see it's a bit of a boundary change, more than a shadow change, as Denise mentioned. It's sort of a just reflecting where the boundary of that existing woodlot is. It is identified as a deciduous woodland. The total area proposed to be changed from AG1 to NE1 is about 1.6 acres for context. And it is recommended that that rezoning be approved. This landowner just wishes to see the lands left as is, was his remark.
So moved by Councillor Miltenberg, seconded by Councillor Hickey, and we're dealing with 37137 Hawkins Road, and the recommendation is to rezone it from AG1 to NE1. Questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? And that is defeated. Thank you. Next one, please.
This next one spans two properties, same idea as a previous one. So it's a feature. Staff did clip back as far as we felt we could. However, there's a feature that crosses the property line. And so there's a little bit of it on each of the next two properties. It is a deciduous swamp and unevaluated wetland. And the recommendation is from AG1 to NE1.
Okay. A mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Forrester moves, Hickey seconds. We're dealing with 84956 Tower Line, and the recommendation is to move from AG1 to NE1. Questions or comments? Miltenberg first, please. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Well, I know that property very well. It's next door to me. I'm trying to figure out what you're trying to do there. Sorry, you want to change from
Yep.
AG1 to any the highlighted bright green area? No.
No,
What-
Denise, please.
The area outlined in blue with the hatching and the words NE1 across it,
Oh, I can't
right
see
at
that.
the northeast corner.
Let me look over here. It's much easier to see. Okay.
Yeah, so it's just the northeast corner, and that feature extends onto the next property, which is why there's two in a row.
Okay.
We all clear on that?
Mhm.
Okay. Any further questions or comments? All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed? And that is defeated. Thank you. Next one, please.
So further to Denise's comments, this is just the adjacent property referring to, again, same feature being that it is identified as deciduous swamp and unevaluated wetland, and same change from AG1 to NE1 on this property. It is recommended that the rezoning be approved.
Moved by Councillor Miltenberg for approval, seconded by Councillor Forrester. And we're dealing with 85028 Tower Line, moving the recommendation from AG1 to NE1. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? The motion is defeated. Thank you. Next one, please.
So this is another property. I will note the slide incorrectly identifies the zoning as AG4. It is AG1 here, so I apologize for that error. The change is from AG1 to NE1 as well. These lands, similarly, they are identified as deciduous swamp and unevaluated wetlands. So it's the area in hatching you sort of see on the north portion of the property. It is recommended that this rezoning be approved.
Thank you very much for that. I'll entertain a mover and a seconder, and a move by Deputy Mayor Vanstone, seconded by Councillor Hickey. Questions, comments? Do you have a question or comment?
No, I was trying to move it. Sorry.
No problem. Okay. Sorry?
Oh, my mic's.
Okay. No questions or comments? All in favor of this recommendation? Opposed? Motion is defeated. Thank you. Next one, please.
This is the final section, or sorry, there's two, this is the second last, concerns about natural environment wording and future implications. So number of the landowners we spoke with, they were concerned not so much with the fact of the natural environment zoning, but they're concerned of what it might lead to in the future in terms of increasing environmental regulations. And so these ones were really all about that sort of longer term concern and concerns about the words natural environment themselves. So if we go through the next few, this is a relatively small patch in the middle of a field. Allens Creek Conservation Authority regulated area does run through it. The area is identified as a mixed woodland. Again, we were able to modify the proposed area sort of to clip it back as much as possible, but this is the area recommended by staff for natural environment. The feeling by the landowner is that, this is not an area where they would probably want to do development. They just don't agree with the words natural environment, as this was an area that they did do stewardship on, so.
Okay, thank you very much. Moved by Councillor Miltenberg for approval, seconded by Councillor Hickey. Questions or comments, please? First from Councillor Miltenberg.
So when you say they did stewardship on it, what does that mean?
Sorry, they've planted some of the trees themselves and otherwise I think tried to maintain this area. It's an erosion buffer, I think is partly how they see it. So I think they see it as being beneficial. They just don't agree with it being called natural environment. And I think they're concerned about what it might lead to in the future if this area was natural environment.
Yeah, I've received quite a few calls on that. And this is where I don't agree with that opinion, but I respect that some people have lived experiences that I don't have and that they believe that. I don't think it's a danger, but if they think it's a danger, who says who's right? And I have to respect other people's opinions. I don't see that it's going to make a difference to the big picture if we change it, and it will make a difference to a person. And while I don't agree with that opinion, I respect it. So I will be voting against this, although I think I moved it.
No problem, no problem. No.
It's the risk you're willing to take.
Oh, yeah, no, I need to deal with it. Okay, questions or comments on this? All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed? And the motion is, the recommendation is defeated. Next one, please.
We're at 37149 Belgrave Road. This landowner has planted thousands of trees on their property. We were able to resolve, there was a number of designations on this property, which the landowner agreed with. The one that they did not agree with was the northwest corner. That is a identified as a young plantation. It's quite a sizable area, and we are recommending that it be zoned NE1. They do not agree with it being noted as natural environment as they planted the trees themselves, and they do not wish for the zoning to change.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Mover and a seconder, Councillor Hickey and Forrester. Questions or comments on this? Question or comment, please, Councillor Miltenberg.
Yeah, I'm going to comment on that. I also know that property, and I don't think it is AG1, and I don't think that it could be used as AG1. And if someone objects to it, calling it NE1, I don't see it's going to make any difference on what that property is, whatever you call it. I don't agree with the reason, but I will respect it, and therefore I will be voting against it.
Okay, thank you for that. Questions or comments? If not, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? And motion is defeated. Thank you very much. Next one, please, Denise.
So this is a property I would say is comparable to the one on Westmount Line that Denise brought up. It is an area along a drain. However, it's an area much wider or larger than we see typically for the areas that we did propose to technically remove. The property is zoned AG1-37. That's our retained farmland zoning for a surplus residence severance, if anyone's wondering what that special zone means. And it is proposed to go to NE1. The area along the watercourse or drain is identified as deciduous woodland. This property owner is just concerned with their ability to clean up the area and remove dead trees. We have confirmed with them that the zoning will not impact their ability to do so, but nonetheless, they just wish to have it left as AG1. So it is recommended that this rezoning be approved.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Moved by Councillor Miltenberg, seconded by Deputy Mayor Vanstone. Questions or comments? Councillor Miltenberg, please.
I'm concerned with the phrase clean up. When you clean up on AG1, what is our, Brad, if I'm not throwing you under the table here, what can you cut down on AG1 land? Is it, I don't think you can do anything on NE1 land, but can you go down and say, oh, and just cut them to make it, like, don't we have a tree bylaw that I should know about?
Yep,
So-
thanks for the question. Denise, please.
So whether a woodlot is AG1 or NE1, they can absolutely be harvested. If there's a tree hanging out over the field, you would take it down, right? There's absolutely nothing that stops anyone from doing that. Where the forest conservation bylaw comes in, right? So there's, it would prohibit clear cutting of woodlots. But normal, good woodlot management practices are absolutely encouraged. We actually support that through the Huron Clean Water Project with funding. So I don't want to leave anyone with the impression today that whether a woodlot is NE1 or AG1, that you can't continue to do those good woodlot management practices. What I think is important for everyone to also know, though, leaving today, is whether your woodlot is zoned AG1 or NE1, the Forest Conservation Bylaw applies.
Correct. Yeah, follow up, please, Councillor Milton.
So when he says he wants to clean up his AG1 land, he can't clear cut it. Just because it's AG1 doesn't mean that you can do that.
Response, please.
Correct, if it met the definition of a woodlot in the Forest Conservation Bylaw.
Okay. Further questions or comments? All in favor of this approved change? Opposed? This is defeated. Thank you very much. Next one, please.
Okay, we're down to the last two. This one is in Saltford. It is a residential property. This property is on Saltford Road 34008. It's quite a steep hill for anyone who knows the area going up to Bissett's Hill. So that north portion is sort of a treed area, and it runs all the way along that north part of the lots. They're all being proposed to be zoned NE1. They're at such a slope that the area is not really able to be, it's not conducive to development activities, shall I say. In any event, the person is not in favor of natural environment. So this would be a change from BR1, Village Hamlet Residential Low Density, to anyone along the rear of the property, and they are not in favor. They would just like it to remain BR1.
Understood. Moved by Councillor Miltenberg, seconded by Deputy Mayor Vanstone. Questions, comments from Councillor Miltenberg first.
What's on the other side of the the map ends where you want to do it, right? What, does it go into a field? Does it go into a bush? Does it go into a residential area?
Okay.
Yeah.
Lena, please.
So through the mayor, this is what I consider lower Saltford. So you kind of have, as Denise mentioned, the hill that Bissett's Hill goes up. That's the hill that's behind this property. So behind it is just additional woodlot at an increased elevation as you go further east. Yep.
Irregardless of the current zoning, it would not be suitable for building upon. Sorry, I missed Councillor Blake. I'm going to call for this vote again, okay? All in favor of this? Opposed? And the motion is defeated. Thank you very much. Next one, please.
Okay, so the next one, so staff have brought forward a revised recommendation on the next property, which is the, let's Selena share. Yeah, this is the St. Augustine line. So again, the recommendation is that the decision be deferred for 6 months. So we were just looking for council to agree with that recommendation. It has been discussed with the landowners. They thought it was a reasonable approach, but again, wanted to get a sense from council. Do you want it brought it back in 6 months' time, or simply at this time, or do you want to provide direction not to?
Okay, so the recommendation is for deferral for 6 months. A motion for that would be made by Councillor Miltenberg, seconded by Councillor Forrester. Clarification, please, Deputy Mayor Vanstone.
Yes, can we not deal with this tonight and either change it or not change it? Because that's what I'd like to see done, if we could.
Yes, you
Okay,
absolutely can.
thank you.
Yep. Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
I'd like to see this deferred for 2 reasons. Number one of the reasons is because of some disease or whatever we're waiting for report for, but I've also received quite a few comments from neighbors saying the exact opposite. So of what the landowner wants, because they've watched those trees grow up. So I would like a more fulsome report on this one. I don't know if you got the calls from the neighbors, but I certainly did. This one is quite a contentious one in the area, and if some of the question is because of the state of the tree, because some of the neighbors don't think that the trees are quite as sick as being said, and they are quite fond of that. And I'd like to see a full report on this one, actually.
Okay, so Deputy Mayor, please.
Yeah, just, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have walked that property. The pines are dying and the, walnuts are, diseased. The only good part of the whole thing is, the outside, there's a lot of cedars and they look really good. If you drive by that, you'd swear it was a wonderful bush, but if you walk through it, it's not. It's a dying bush and, it'd be nice to see it go back to agriculture or stay agriculture because it's AG1 now. So thank you.
Okay, Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Well, I appreciate your comments, Bill. I don't think you have the qualifications that maybe the neighbor would want to see based on, is it a healthy woodlot or not? And that's what I would like to see in a report, something less anecdotal and something more actual.
Okay, thanks for that. I'm going to ask a question of our planners on clarification. The recommendation is for deferral for 6 months. Did I hear that the applicant is agreeable to that?
They said that they would, generally, they would like to be able to make an income from this property in future. They're trying to ascertain the best way in which to do that. I think they're considering various options. And yes, what we just discussed was being able to look at the tree health, determining whether or not the forest conservation bylaw in fact applies to this property or not, and revisit it in 6 months. It is possible in 6 months' time that the planning department would come back and say, given the tree health, we do not recommend a change to natural environment, but we're not able to make that decision yet based on the information that we have. So that's sort of how we left it. I think if the landowners, I think ultimately they probably don't want it to go to natural environment because they indicated in their last correspondence to council, which you all received last week, I think their words were that they would like to pursue an option to make an income from this property.
And I think that's very, very valid. Personally, I feel we should give them that opportunity to do that. So I think a deferral for 6 months, in my opinion, would be appropriate. Councillor Hickey, please.
So clarification on this, if this deferral for 6 months gets voted down, what would happen to that property then after tonight?
Staff, please, clerk or the planners.
It would so if we're not, so we've recommended to defer. If that's voted down that you don't want to defer, then the decision this evening would be essentially, do you want it to go from AG1 to anyone, and it would remain AG1 is my understanding.
So then we would have a second vote
Yes.
after
I'll
the first
defer
one,
to-
if it goes that way.
Yep,
Yes.
I'll defer to our clerk, please.
So I'll speak to this. The motion has been moved and seconded to defer for 6 months. So that decision has to be made regardless because it's been moved and seconded. Based on the conversation, and also the fact that we would like to have some direction tonight as to how we would bring forward the maps, because the idea behind this is that based on these motions, we're going to have a revised mapping that's going to reflect the changes decided tonight. So we need to know what the map's going to look like for this property. So it would be requested that someone move that it would be approved, and then we deal with that as we have with the others. So ultimately there are 2 steps with this,
Depending on
depending on the outcome of the first vote.
Correct. Yes. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
Let me make it clear. The reason I think that it needs to be deferred is so that I can get more information so that I can make an actual decision, not a political one. And I think that if we say, no, let's not defer it, let's not get any more information, we just don't want any changes, that's a political decision. Like, that's why I wanted to talk about every property. Like, what are we thinking here? And if the thing is just no zoning, why did we go through every property? If that's the way the vote's gonna go. Like, I would like to have the information so that I can vote one way or the other, whether it gets defeated or not. And I don't have that information, and that's why I want it deferred. And those are my comments.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Now, Deputy Mayor, please.
Okay, there already has been 2 people that looked at this place and they have, and I don't know why you didn't get that copy, but it has been looked at, that the trees are diseased and dying, so it has been looked at. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And I would just like to reiterate, I would rather give the property owner the latitude of 6 months on this. However, that is the will of council. So any further discussion on this? The motion is on 84-294 St. Augustine line for defer for 6 months. All in favor of this motion? Opposed? The motion is defeated. Thank you. The subsequent direction on this, please. Deputy Mayor?
I'd like to make a motion that this piece of property stay as AG1 in our mapping.
Clerk, please.
So just for consistency, so that we can match the rest of them, I'm gonna, well, I guess we can't because no, there isn't. So, that the rezoning proposed,
Should do that. I would, for your consideration, do you care for a new motion on this, or do you care to deal with the rezoning being changed from
Okay,
AG1?
so I just want to talk this through. It's getting late, guys. Bear with me. So the proposed change is from AG1 to natural environment. So consistently with the rest of them, it would have been that the recommendation be to change it so that the proposed rezoning on 84294 St. Augustine line be approved. So not just deferred, but approved.
Correct.
Okay? So is that all right, Bill, that we change it from what you just said to that the rezoning proposed on 84294 St. Augustine line be approved?
Be changed from AG1 to anyone.
Okay. Be changed.
Read the motion that because we're going to have to redo this motion.
You're gonna have to agree to redo it. That the rezoning proposed on so to make it consistent with everything else that we've done, okay? That the rezoning proposed on 84294 St. Augustine line be approved.
On the recommendation of changing it from AG1 to anyone.
Right.
Okay?
So that was moved by Bill, and you're all right with that, just to get it going?
Is that what you like, Bill?
Okay.
Deputy
you.
Mayor?
That's fine.
Seconded by Councillor Hickey. Further discussion on this? Councillor Miltenberg.
Sorry, but can you repeat the motion, just because we said it so many times,
No
I'm not
problem.
exactly sure what it is.
Clerk, please.
That the rezoning proposed on 84294 St. Augustine line be approved.
Changing it from AG1 to anyone.
You want that last line in there?
For clarification, please.
From AG1 to anyone,
Correct. So
right? So that, because that's the recommended change from the planning
Correct.
department.
that
Okay.
is right. So we're dealing.
Wanna get this
Yeah,
right.
oh yeah, no problem at all. We're dealing with 84294 St. Augustine line, and the recommendation is to change the rezoning from AG1 currently to anyone.
Yes.
We're all clear? Questions, comments? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion is defeated. Thank you.
We are on our last slide here. This is a property on Black Hole Road. The proposed change is from C4, which is our salvage yard zone, to NE1. The area shown in blue hatching is identified as deciduous woodland as well as ANSI. So again, an area of natural and scientific interest. In this case, it's a life science ANSI with regional significance due to the Maitland River Valley. It's kind of cut off, but the Maitland River, in terms of its proximity, is adjacent to this property to the rear. This is the light blue of the river. This property owner has simply requested that this zoning not go through. Hence why it's being brought forward. It is recommended by staff that this rezoning be approved.
Okay, mover and a seconder on this. Councillor Miltenberg moves, Councillor Hickey seconds. Clarification, I would like to ask, so it is currently C4 salvage yard, and the recommendation is Denny.
Correct.
Okay. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
And the reason they don't want it?
It's their perception that it's going to limit their ability to expand the salvage yard. We've had sort of conversations like we had this evening about the role of the forest conservation bylaw and how the zoning, is reflecting what's on the ground. They just simply are requesting that that salvage yard zoning be left in place.
Okay, questions, comments? Any further? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? And that is defeated. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, we can stop sharing probably at this time. We've had our direction from council. So what will happen after this evening is that staff will take the direction of council. We'll go back to the GIS, the mapping staff, and alter the zone maps as per council's direction. The maps will return to council in July with a bylaw for your consideration.
With the actions as noted tonight or direction from council.
They will all be built into the
Yeah.
zoning bylaw, yes.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hickey first, and then Councillor Milberg.
Thank you. Considering the direction that we've kind of taken tonight on the recommendations, would a motion on the zoning bylaw be accepted overall for a vote tonight?
I'll speak to that.
Yeah, clerk, please.
That was already done, the zoning bylaw itself.
Yeah.
So are you speaking to the text or are you speaking to the maps?
I'm speaking on mapping.
So I think the motions that were given today, are you just looking to approve the maps with the proposed changes? Is that what you're suggesting?
They're going back to the drawing board with what we've done tonight, but it's gonna come back in July, you said, and it could go back and forth again, right? Or is July the last
No.
one?
July.
She's
No.
saying yes, sorry.
No.
I had a yes and a no over there at the same time.
Sorry, so through the mayor, July will be the final product based on tonight. There will not be additional staff recommendations brought forward. It's just going to be the final mapping reflecting the direction we've received tonight for passing. That's it.
Okay, clerk, please.
In order for council to consider the bylaw, you need to have the bylaw physically in front of you. So you need to have the final draft with the changes in order for it to become, read first, second, third, severally, in order for it to become a bylaw. So that would be the next step. Okay?
Process.
Yeah.
Okay. Deputy Mayor, please.
Yeah, and I guess I'm just worried about the ones that didn't read their letter, and there's going to be changes to their properties, and when the mapping comes out after July, they'll see this and then be upset about it. So, and I guess that's the way it is, but it just seems that I wish we could address it somehow.
Thank you for that. Clerk, please.
To get technical here, anything that is outstanding or that a landowner doesn't agree with what would have been passed in the zoning bylaw maps, there is an appeal period that applies to that as well. So there is still the ultimate opportunity for an appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal.
Deputy Mayor, please.
But I keep saying they would have to pay so much money to go through that route, where I guess I'm looking at the fact that we are here now, and if we could address it without all that, it would save a whole lot. But if they haven't come forward, I can't do much about it. So, okay, thank you.
Excuse me, Brett, did you have a comment or not? Your staff, planners? I don't want to put you, I just didn't want to miss you if you had a comment. I'm not
No,
putting you on the spot.
Through the mayor, the deputy mayor's comments are noted. I will say this has been a year-long process, and the public consultation portion of this process was extensive in terms of the mailouts, in terms of the open houses. So my hope is that, those who have had concerns have had ample opportunity to provide those concerns to council.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Miltenberg, please.
This is just a procedural question. When we denied going from NE1 to NE5, we actually knowingly went against provincial policy, right? Will we get in trouble for that down the road somewhere, or how's that work? Since we've decided to do it, now I'm wondering what's it going to cost us?
I'll defer to planners for a response, please.
In terms of moving forward, if a property is not zoned natural environment but is a provincially significant wetland, first of all, I've been with the department for 15 years. I've not had anyone propose a development in a provincially significant wetland. Those areas are simply not conducive to development. Secondly, if they propose development, we would not be able to issue them the permit, as they're also regulated by the Conservation Authority and they have that provincial classification. So will you get in trouble is the question. I mean, ultimately, no. I think it's about just transparency is what the staff perspective was. We clearly understand the direction of council and we will move forward on that basis.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. All right, thank you very much. I would like, on behalf of council, to thank our planners very much for the extensive work and the consultation that was undertaken through this process. Thank you very much for that. With that, 5.1 is a bylaw regarding the Alton Holding Zone, and I would entertain a mover and a seconder for this, please? Deputy Mayor moves, Councillor Hickey seconds, that leave be given to introduce bylaw number 41-2024, being a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw 32-2008 for the township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh, and then it now be read severally, a first, second, and third time, and finally pass this 18th day of June 2024. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. I thank you. The confirmation bylaw, a mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor Forrester and Miltonberg, that leave be given to introduce bylaw number 42-2024, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Township of Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh meeting held on June 18th, 2024, and that it now be read severally, a first, second, and third time, and finally pass this 18th day of June 2024. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. I thank you. And a motion to adjourn, if you would. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Hickey, that Ashfield-Colborne-Wawanosh Township Council does now adjourn to meet again on July 9th, 2024 at 7 p.m. or at the call of the mayor. All in favor of the motion? And that is carried. I thank you. Thanks all, and thank you very much to everyone's participation.